Fire Radio.
Hey everybody, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, Captain Wayne Jones out of the Horry County Fire Rescue. It's not Horry, it's Horry. I got corrected in the pregame today. Us, guys up north talking like we're from the South, it just doesn't work. Cap, how are you, man? Thanks for joining me on the show.
Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so you and I got mixed up between mutual friends. Dan Schultz, a friend of ours, his son has relocated down south and has fallen in love with the job 10 times over where you guys are in Horry County. And so, here we are. We had a conversation, some text messages, a phone call. And what I loved was the introduction I have to people is always fun for me because it sets the tempo and it explains what the relationship's going to look like. And I was driving back. I had about an hour in the car, and I think you and I chatted for 45 minutes of that hour just talking about topics and things. And there was a lot of mutual conversation back and forth because we both come from and believe in a lot of the same things.
Sure. I would have to say that, yeah. This is a passion-driven job, and one of the hardest things to do is, my primary job being an instructor is teach the basic skills, fundamentals, cognitive skills, stuff like that, and it's really hard to teach the passion. We can show the passion all day long, but it's like a lifelong goal is to try to make somebody else love it as much as I do. That's all I know.
Where does that come from, though? Because here's the thing, right? So you're one of the lead instructors at the academy there in the training division. You guys have a massive class coming in, right? You have a very large class coming in, I believe, right?
Yeah, well, we're going through it right now. We're in week 10. So
okay.
The way we normally do it is we'll take half of them to start EMT school, half of them start fire school. We'll flip-flop them at about 15, 16 weeks, somewhere like that, and rinse and repeat. And then after both sides get finished with fire and EMT school, we do graduation day. And then they get their station assignments and go out in the street.
How long is the academy process for you guys?
Roughly 30 weeks start to finish.
30 weeks. Okay. And that's fire and EMT. And what do they get? Fire 1 and 2, I believe you said?
Yeah, they get, our recruits they get fire 1, fire 2, EVDT, pumps 1, pumps 2, RIT, rescue and rescuer, Auto X, Wildland 1, and Wildland 2.
Wow. That's a full schedule.
Oh yeah. It's it's definitely a daunting task to keep it going.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? And talking about the size of Horry County, right? So I think you said you have over 500 career, and then there's also a smaller volunteer contingent. But your department has changed dramatically in the last 25 to 30 years, I have to believe, right? You guys went from a primarily volunteer sector to a career fire department.
Yeah, it started off, in 1977. The council done a referendum to start a volunteer fire service, and it was based on how the constituents voted, whether they wanted a local fire department in their area or not. That grew. That was actually called Horry County Fire Protection District. That changed over in 1985 to where the council went ahead and started fully funding a countywide fire department in 1985. And it was Horry County Fire Department from 85 until 2001. 2001, they merged Horry County Fire and Horry County EMS together to make Horry County Fire Rescue. So our fire department right now 23 years old. So 23 years, roughly 700 people, over 40 firehouses. It's been a huge amount of growth.
I would say so. I mean, you're looking at a department of almost 700 people, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's a lot happening. There's a lot. And now you have a recruit class coming through 10 weeks in, 70-something candidates that you have going through the process. I mean, it's just a lot of moving parts. And when the department is young like that, I mean, 24 is not young, but it's young in the grand scheme of things when it comes to a fire and rescue department, if you will. I'm sure there's a hell of a lot of curves along the way that you got to navigate and figure out.
It is. I mean, a lot of times it's scheduling. We got our battalion chief of training, Chief Strickland. He is a rock star. I mean, he takes all the time with the schedule and stuff and keeping things lined up so the instructors can just get out and teach. I mean, so that way it keeps us out in the office as much as possible so we can spend more time with the recruits. And, you know, sometimes you got to call the audible kickback, you know, step back and punt. I mean, but we make it work, and we run an average of over 100 recruits a year coming through. So right now we're on class 53, and class 1 started in 2001.
Wow.
So we turn out a lot of recruit schools.
Yeah. Yeah, you sure do. What does it look like today? I mean, for you to grow up in that department, I mean, you got on in 96. You were a junior firefighter in 93. You got on in 96 as a firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've seen this thing grow. You're a part of the blueprint, the mapping of this.
It's definitely different than starting on a 75 LaFrance with a front mount pump. It definitely is.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to be able to sit back and watch it all happen over the years. And I've actually witnessed everything that's happened throughout it. You know, never be one to say I was a part of all of it, but I actually got to watch all of it happen. And there's a lot of stories to keep from years to come. And I think one of the good things about it is, in order for us to teach people where we are, we got to teach them where we come from. So that gives me a big asset, because I've been here just about the whole time to be able to tell them the history of the department.
Well, expand on that, because I think that's super important. I don't think that's talked about enough, is protecting the foundation from which we come. And a lot of kids today don't really have much interest in knowing what it used to be like, or understand or have empathy for the hardships or the triumphs that guys have gone through years prior.
Sure. I mean, like most places that have departments have got their antique piece for the parades or whatever. You know, like we got a 1920 Fox or whatever. You know, our antique piece is a 1985 C8000. That was kind of what we started with. And,
that's wild.
Yeah, and I mean, but they're never going to understand where we're going if they don't know where we come from. And look at what we're doing, and the hard work it took to get it to where it is now. I mean, there was a lot of people that laid the foundation for what these people are working on right now. I mean, a lot of hard work, a lot of trials, a lot of errors, but we've got a system that's working really good now. It can always be better. I mean, we're steady trying.
Talk to me a little bit about your early days. I know you and I, when we chatted on the phone, we had a great conversation, and some of that conversation had to do with mentorship. And that's a passion of yours, if you will, as talking points. I'd love to get a little background before we go down that rabbit hole. I'd love to get a little background from you. What did your upbringing in the fire service look like? Did you have clear mentors that were there to help guide or sway you in your career path?
Mine's a little different story than most kids that start off as a junior. You know, I'm the first person in my family to ever go into fire service. There's absolutely nobody in my family with public safety. I got into fire service on a promise to my best friend in high school. We both played little league ball together and stuff. His mom was a career dispatcher and a volunteer fireman, and he kept talking to me about wanting to come up to the firehouse with us. You know, they got a junior program starting. That's who started with the Explorers. They were something new they were trying, and so I said, okay, yeah. Finally said we'll go, and we were supposed to go that Monday night, and that Sunday morning he was killed in a car wreck on the way to church. And
wow,
I kept my promise. Monday night I was there, and I've never left. I mean, believe it or not, his mom was a huge mentor, being a volunteer fireman, you know, and it was like, I want to be that. I mean, I understand her heart was tearing out, but she's the one that cut him out. I mean,
wow.
You know, dedication to family, dedication to community, everything else. I mean, I was blessed that I had a little bit of what we call around here being the squirrel. I'd bounce from nest to nest, because I'd go. Our firehouses are on average, 7, 8, 9 miles apart from each other. So I would bounce around wherever I could get my mom and dad to drop me off at, and where the guys were hanging out at, because everything being volunteer and everybody's there all the time. I would say that once I got to where I could drive, we actually started the department started with the school district and had a shadowing program, and to where we could get school credit for going to the firehouse doing first responder care. And one of my great friends, Kenny Roberts, he was one of the firemen that mentored me a lot during high school, because I would go. He was a paid fireman, and I'd go hang out with him, get school credit, and get to ride the truck, and him teach me all kind of neat stuff. And it goes full circle, because 2 recruit classes ago, I taught his son. I mean, so his son is now a fireman, so I got to pay it back. And he was huge and helping me throughout, getting started with the fire service and learning things. And
what was it? What was it about the fire service that was your hook? I mean, I know it was a promise to a friend, mm-hmm. and in saying that his mother was kind of an example that you wanted to follow in her footsteps, if you will, in the way she conducted herself and so on. But was it like the core tenets, the core values of it? Was it the civic mindedness? Was it the service? Like, what was it that was your hook? Being an outsider and not having that hook, what was it?
A sense to belong. Somewhere to be, somewhere and be a part of something. I mean, because
I love that.
Where I grew up at, there's not a lot to do. I mean, if you like helping this accent, I got a little bit of a country bumping going on here. But honestly, where I grew up, there wasn't a part of the county. There's not a whole lot to do but ride 4-wheelers, hunting kids or whatever, and wanted something more. So started hanging out at the firehouse all the time, seeing how much of an impact it made it to the community. How many people helping people and wanted to be a part of it. And
I think Cap, I think there's so much to that. The fact that the fire service offers a place of belonging, a place of direction and guidance. I think that what the fire service stands for, with its core tenets of morals, ethics, values, all those things, so super important that there are kids starving for that, and they're looking for it. We have to do a better job at explaining that that's what the fire service is built on. The principles of the fire service is what most people are looking for.
Sure. I mean, I was doing a report for school, and it turned into a PowerPoint presentation that turned into, fingers crossed, that it go deliver well at the conference this summer. I was actually picked for it, and it's talking about the same mentoring aspect. I want to do what was done to me. One of my greatest mentors was the guy that, when I first got hired, he busted my balls every day. But he made me what I am. And 26 years later, this guy still texts me every 2 or 3 times a week, sending me extra thoughts about this. Hey, think about teaching the kids this. Think about this. I mean, it's just,
it doesn't stop.
He's been drinking coffee at his house or whatever for I don't know how long since he's retired, and he's still steady on the phone. Hey, rookie, you need to be doing this. I mean,
let me ask you, that guy rode you hard in your early days. He stayed on top of you. He still does today. But why didn't you walk away? Like, that is the one part of the conversation in mentorship that I really want to talk about with you. And I didn't mean to cut you off, because I want you to continue with the story.
Fine.
But my point is this, is that you have to be willing to be mentored. And there's a thing about early on, years ago, you and I share, our timelines are very, very similar. And back then, I don't think I realized I was being mentored or taught or tutored by anyone. I just thought I was getting my stones broken hard. But I kept coming back. And I think that that's part of it, is like understanding that there's growth. And what I always tell my kids, which I think is funny, they don't, but I said it builds character. You need that. But today I find a lot of people are turned off or upset, or now we have a quote unquote hostile work environment. And now that informalness of building character is now being vilified, or people are walking away from it or being turned off by it. Meanwhile, it is exactly what we need to grow the next generation.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Jeremy. I mean, when he rode me hard, he seen something in me I didn't see in myself. That's the only thing I
Yes.
can come to.
Yes.
I see it in kids, kids I'm dealing with today, and they're, and no different than my own children. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I ride my kids hard because I see what they can
I do
be,
too.
and I mean, I love them more than anything in this world. But if I see the potential in you, I'm gonna get it out of you. I mean, that old guy. I mean, he rode me hard, but you know, I think the old aspect of it, spite's a hell of a motivator. I mean, you push me thinking I'm going to back away, get ready, because here I come.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, I got my degree on that. I mean, it's somebody telling me that it couldn't be done. It's like, okay, 40 years old, let's go to school. Great idea. No, said no one ever. Um, but I got it finished. I mean, it was a huge accomplishment. Showed my kids, hey, there's no excuses when you're 40-year-old pops going to school. I mean, just trying to lead by example, no different than what was done for me years ago.
There's a lot there, and I think that I would have to believe that your sense of belonging and looking for something more kept you coming back, even when you were being tutored and mentored by this individual, and the greater outcome trumped, feelings and looking at ways in a different light than you did. I mean, I just, it's so important to instill that in people, is like, you have to trust the process, and part of the process doesn't give a crap about your feelings. It's just like the fire ground. Just when you think you have things narrowed in, you're dialed in, you're going to get kicked in the teeth. It's how it works, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah. You can get a whole lot better than that. I mean, the time you got it figured out, guess what? You're wrong. The old guy from
That's right.
the old guy from Steeler said, Johnny, just when you think you got it figured out, you're wrong. I mean, I use a lot of movies stuff when I'm teaching.
Yeah.
Stuff you can relate to, and I think there's a lot of kids that want that sense of belonging now. And when talking about that report I done earlier, it's taken 2 years worth of research from kids that finished in COVID. Because what did they have? And that's the majority of what we got coming in the fire service now is kids that finished high school and college during COVID, where they were stuck at home. There weren't any, no formal sports. Everybody was staying so far away from each other. The kids weren't playing ball. They weren't running anything team driven. They didn't have the coaches and mentors and teachers and stuff like they had before. And I think a lot of them are really wanting that. They want somebody to mentor them, show them, lead them, and some of them are wanting you to kind of get on them a little bit, show them what they need to do. And everything's not unicorns and rainbows, and I think they understand that, but they're not conditioned to it because for the last 2 or 3 years, everything's been 100% handed to them on the computers and direct. And you talk about it in your Bridging the Gap program a lot. I mean, there is so much I can relate to with that, because right now in my class, I got a retired, command sergeant major versus a kid that just graduated high school. I mean, right. in the same class together. So there's a lot of bridging right there.
And yet between those two extremes, there's still common ground that can bring them together.
Absolutely.
Which makes that candidate class or probie class even stronger, which unites the class when they come out on top. It's, that somebody like that with a structured military career comes out, joins the fire service, to a 19-year-old kid that joins the fire service looking for direction. That's a guy that's got direction. He's got drive. He's got ambition. He's got discipline. And if that 19-year-old kid is willing to listen, willing to open up his ability to be a part of something bigger, he's going to come out on top. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, if we could, it's a living struggle, and instructors since the beginning of time have tried to figure out what is the best way to get the students to where they will be receptive to what we're trying to say. Because that's one of the biggest things is trying to get it to where we can teach the stuff all day long, but to get them to where they actually start absorbing it in and build rock stars, man. I mean,
That's good. I'm making a time note there because I like that message, and I think there's something to that. I also think, too, in a program that is 30 weeks, there's enough time built into, and I don't say this in a bad way, but there's enough time built in to break them down to bring them back up, right? Because we have to educate from the get that there's expectations. They have to let go of any preconceived ideas or things that have happened to them in the past. They have to check it at the door. They have to come familiar with the program and the expectations, and then they get to flourish and excel underneath that type of program, right?
Yeah. We don't do the traditional military breakdown. We don't. We start the thing off with doing the expectations. Day one, this is what is expected of you. We're going to hold you to it. But we don't do the breakdown. It's I like to start off with, I do things a little differently in the way I teach. And a lot of times, you always heard the old thing, respect earned, not given. I do a 180 on that. I tell everybody from the word go, you 100% have my respect until you lose it. And then you're going to have to work really, really hard to get it back. But you're not going to have to earn anything, because when I walk in the door, I'm expecting you to respect me, and you don't even know who I am.
That's
so
it.
how have I had a chance to earn your respect? Because I got a badge? No, it doesn't work that way. Give me the courtesy of respecting me 100% for what I know as an instructor and as a person. I'm going to respect you for stepping forward to do this job. And whenever you lose it, then we're going to see what you got to do to work and get it back. I mean, so it's a little different than the way things were taught to me back in the day. I mean, but nothing set in stone.
I'm smiling. I'm grinning because that is like a chapter in my class that I talk about. I talk about exactly that. Is how dare we not afford them the opportunity to give them respect as they come through the door? Let them lose it. It's not theirs to gain. It's theirs to lose.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Start them on a high note. When I said break them down, Cap, I wasn't just talking about like that berating and yelling and get on the floor type stuff. Breaking them down is just taking old habits or old ways of doing things and kind of telling them they got to check that at the door because we have other expectations and another way to do things here, and we need you to become a part of that. So that's what I meant by that. I don't necessarily believe the screaming and hollering and push-ups and all that stuff, in your face for the first 3 weeks is the right way. It's just a way, but that's what I meant by that. But I love this. Talk to me then about mentorship itself now, right? Because you had some great experiences coming up through the process. You're now in a position where you're one of the lead instructors in the training division. So you have your hands on these candidates on a regular basis with the rest of your crew there. You guys you're thrusted into a mentorship position, if you will. You guys are in a place now where you are really responsible for the outcome of their candidate school and setting the first couple chapters in their career and their story. You're responsible for that. What does that feel like?
Overwhelming sometimes. Honestly.
I love that.
Very humbling. Because our training division has a challenge point. And on the back of the challenge point is a big thumbprint in the center of it. And we use that as an asset. Every person that leaves out of this gate when they graduate got the thumbprint of the cadre on them. And it's going to stay there throughout their career. So how am I going to make sure they're the best they can be because they're leaving my thumbprint? I mean, it's not like, okay, here you go, you got the certs, whatever. It's life lessons. I mean, let's be honest. We're teaching kids how to shine shoes and iron pants. I mean, and it's nothing on their part. I mean, it's not their fault. They haven't been taught. I mean, so we do a lot of life lessons. We do a lot of regular basic skills. We do, teach them how to be good stewards of the department. I mean, and on top of that, doing fire stuff. That coaching and mentoring stuff. I mean, I had a ball coach that stayed on me pretty hard a lot of times and driving me and everything else. And a lot of these kids don't have that. A lot of times we might be the very first people that actually show that we care whether they succeed or they fail.
I had a situation with a young kid in my firehouse, and I got heated, got on him. I thought he was going to cry. And I stood there, and I was like, whoa. I actually had to take a moment and go, whoa. Like, what? Like, so I ended up taking off my SCBA, threw it on the bumper, unbuttoned my coat, took a minute, and I went over and I grabbed him and I pulled him aside and had a conversation with him. And I don't think anybody's ever spoken to him like that before. And in fact, it was so, I think, so scary for him that I was concerned that, like, I don't know, he was going to run away. Like, I just, and then it's just not how it's a really interesting thing these days in how we communicate. And communication is huge. And if this was years ago, I would have never came back to the kid until a week or two later. You let him stew. And this one was when I snapped at him, I really felt that I had to go back and correct that for his benefit. And years ago, I wouldn't have done that. And now I recognize, like, I probably shouldn't have scoffed at him like I did, but it was deserved. You know what I'm saying? It was absolutely 100% deserved. But I circled back to follow up with him because I felt that I had to, because the situation required it for his sake.
I've been in that same situation many times, like anybody else that's ever worked on a rig, been a line officer. Just like you're saying, the younger people, they can take the stressness. They can take the little bit of a heated thing. I tell them sometimes that we don't have time in the heat of the moment to explain everything.
That's right, 100%.
It is what it is. But we, as talking about in the bridging the gap thing and everything else, we've got to remember they didn't learn like we learned. They weren't raised like we were raised.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to come around full circle, go back and explain the why. So that, and then a lot of times it clicks with them. They put two and two together, and it's like, look, I didn't mean to be hard on you. Right then was not the time for debate. This is what it is. Do what I say right then. I'll explain it later. And I think a lot of times it teaches them more of what's going on in the urgency of a moment. They understand it whenever we reinforce it with a why and an understanding conversation, that, and let them, it's not based to hurt your feelings. I wasn't trying to bark at you or whatever else. It's just, it had to be said. It had to be done. What if it was a safety issue? It's got to be taken care of. It's not time to sit there and debate over it.
I couldn't agree with you more. It made me realize, Cap, that we, as the more senior people, have to change the way in which we operate as well now. And we're always having to adjust and make sure that we are adapting as well. And I think that this is where a lot of the miscommunication happens, or the separation of generational values happens, is when the older generation is not willing to change. We expect the younger generation to follow suit with what we say, and we expect them to do all the work because we've already done the work. When in fact, we need the older guys to kind of do as much work as the younger guys so we can find that middle ground.
Yeah. I mean, look here, when I first started in the fire service, there was a lot of older guys and stuff there, and you know what? They mopped floors just as good as I did. I mean, just because you've been here doesn't mean you're entitled to doing nothing. I mean, no different than an officer. All of us, career staff, volunteer staff, it doesn't matter. When you become an officer, you still do the job as a fireman, but you've got more responsibilities to do the other stuff on top of that. It doesn't give you a chance to go sit in the office and do nothing while everybody else works. When I was on the street, before I come over to the training division, I worked with my guys all day long. When it come, I went to the office at night when everybody got finished for dinner. We'd knock out chores, then I'd sit down and do my extra work. But my primary job is being with them. And how are you going to, you talk so much about the stories of the past because you learn so much from the stories.
Yes.
How do you have an opportunity and being able to tell the stories if you're not out there with them? You know, the young guy needs to come to the table and sit down with the old man and have a cup of coffee, but in the same aspect, you ain't gonna be able to tell your legacy on the couch. Go out with the guys. You might be able to tell a kid, hey, there's an easier way to mop the floor than what you're doing, or don't wash the truck that way. Let me show you what I learned 20 years ago that'll make life easier on you. Then you're passing that stuff on, and it sparks a time for the conversation for those stories.
And it creates an environment of mutual respect, which I love.
It does.
And I think that there is. You said, before I go there, you said something to me before. You said we have to get the mentor back into the job. You said that to me before we were recording, and I wrote that down. And that stood out to me because I think I understand what you're saying, but I want to explore that while we continue to talk about mentoring. Are we lacking mentors, or is the mentor changed in the fire service?
I think the biggest thing is you know, we still got people that mentor people all day long. They're helping them out, showing them the way, stuff like that. I think the dynamics of the fire service has kind of changed a little bit. Look, people our age are up for retirement. So your guys with 20, 25, 30 years, those guys are getting ready to go home. And a lot of times you don't see a fireman with 20 years of experience anymore.
Right.
I mean, they've already promoted, started moving up the chain, doing stuff like that. And so, you know, the years of the true senior man in the firehouse that's got this, you know, legacy of calls and years on the job and everything else and stuff, they're not there. A lot of times, if a guy's got 5 years, he might be the senior fireman in the station. I mean, but, you know, they're still trying to do what they can to mentor and help out and everything else. It's just that I think the people that have time, that are getting close to retirement, we need to take a few minutes, reflect on it, see what else we need to pass on and show to the people that's going to be filling our spots so they can have a blueprint to kind of mentor the people the same way we were mentored. Not saying it's going to be the exact same way because 20 years of difference in culture in the fire service, but still the importance of it, making sure you passing on what was taught to you. It's things like this more, I'm going to learn how I can learn, and it's for me. It's not for me, it's for we. You know, you learn something, pass it on.
I love the idea of mentorship starts the first day you walk into the firehouse, right? Or into the fire academy. You always have, you know, I think back to what you were talking about with that gentleman that you have in your class right now that came out of the military, right? What position, what was his title?
I'm probably saying his rank wrong. I know he was higher than a master sergeant. I know he said that.
So if you think about that, he's mentoring so many already in that class.
We're watching
right?
it every day. I mean,
yeah,
and a lot of times it helps us. You know, every fire department across the country has recruit schools. They get guys that were in the military and now they're coming into the fire service and stuff because why? They want that sense of belonging feel. They want that civil service mindset from what they've done in the military. They want the structure. They want the camaraderie. And we've automatically got a bunch of little informal leaders inside recruit schools because they're used to that thing, and they take the people that are not, and it's like they still don't know anything about the fire service, but they understand the basis of what the whole thing is. We can teach them the fire materials and stuff, but they're the go-to and the informal leaders of the crowd. I mean, they're gaining the same education as everybody is, but you can automatically see the people going to them. They see that respect for what they have done throughout their life already. I mean, and
it's the life skills. I mean, you know, they're getting indoctrinated by the fire service together, but the guy with a military background certainly can teach these kids how to polish their shoes, press their pants, iron their shirts, look squared away, how to march correctly if you guys do that, like all those things, exercise. He's got that built in already. That's in his system. He becomes now a mentor to those. And what I really want to throw out there is how you're talking about the 20, 25, 30-year guys. It's harder and harder to find backstep firefighters with 20 years. So now you're starting to look at 10 and 5 and 7 years, and those guys are becoming the senior man in a firehouse, if you will. What I want to do is educate all these guys coming up that everybody is watching. The 1-year kid, the probationary fireman, the 2-year kid is watching the 5-year kid. And if you have bad habits at 5 years, he's going to take on those bad habits too. And that is why I think it's so important that it's not just mentorship from the senior man. It's guidance and mentorship from everybody in that company. And you know, the 2-year guy will be in that 5-year guy, and the 5-year guy will become a 10-year guy. But if you develop bad habits or you're not understanding that, even when you think nobody's looking, they're watching.
Yeah.
They're watching.
We tell the recruits from day one, said, look, guys, every day is a job interview. No, right now you're learning, you're in class, everything else, but whether you realize it or not, every day is a job interview. We've got companies that come and help us do classes and stuff like that. And, you know, what do you think those guys are doing? They're putting their feelers out, looking at everybody. Hey, I want that guy, or I don't want him. I mean, it's
100%.
And, you know, they're getting buy-on from the guys in the street, or starting to get buy-in to the recruits. And we start getting those emails. Hey, this guy right here was doing good. You think there's any way we can get him on our shift whenever they go to graduate? I mean, but every day's an interview. Learn as much as you can learn. Be a sponge, you know, but sometimes you can learn what not to do from a lot of people too.
Oh, 100%. I think that's almost more valuable at times. I really do. And I don't know if I understood that until much later in my fire service career, if you will. I just, you know, I don't think I was a good, I thought I could have been a lot better. I'm better today than I've ever been. You know, I have my own faults too. And when I was in my 20s and you know, mid-20s, late 20s, I thought I knew everything. I couldn't be told. I knew everything. I couldn't be told. And I didn't appreciate the process, or I thought I did. I told everybody I did. I told everybody what a student of the fire service I was, but I didn't grow then. If anything, I was learning what not to do, and it made me who I am today. But yeah, I was pretty closed off to it. That was an issue for me for a while. Just who I was.
Yeah, I mean, look here, I'll be the first one to tell you, these kids over here in the building across from where I'm at, they have made a huge impact in me in the last couple of years.
I love that.
They, I've always been kind of hot-headed, been had a little fast temper, and I thought having 3 daughters at home would teach me patience. Nah, these kids is what taught me patience. I mean,
I get it.
But I mean, they teach me as much as I ever teach them. They teach me a lot about myself on a daily basis. You know,
and you allow yourself to recognize that. It's super important.
Yeah.
I think there's so much that is rewarding when you are in a position. You know, a lot of our training academies, and this is something I gripe about a lot, is I see a lot of, you know, in the county system, if you will, the county fire, you know, districts and so on, the training academies. You find a lot of guys end up there that just don't really care anymore. It's a wasting ground for their end of their career. Or on the volunteer side, they haven't ridden a fire truck in 20 years, but they're still teaching the Fire 1 students. I think that's a detriment to the fire service, and I think that that's a problem. And then I get to meet guys like you, and we talk about your academy, your program, what you guys are doing, and you come to find out that the individuals there are far from that. They are people that are pushing the program further, dialing in on their people, making the fire department better, making an impact. Those are the people we need in our academies.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, the crowd we've got here, I mean, it's not me, it's we. I mean, I'll say that until the day it's time to go home, and then, you know, years after the fact. We got guys that work really hard to build the program we've got. We've got instructors that put a lot more into it than what is actually required by the job, because they believe in the kids, they believe in the department. We've got, all of us have been here long enough that we've got ownership in it. And I know, just like you're saying in the past, you know, a lot of places over, well, I got 2 years left, I'm going to the training center and just kind of fill out until it's time to go home. Nah, it's time to go to work when you get here. I mean, because this is the future of what's going to replace everybody. And when I'm laying at home, you know, and on a rocking chair or something later on, these are going to be the kids coming to my house if something happens to me or my family. I want to make sure they got their stuff squared away. I mean,
it's also your way. It's legacy, right? Like,
it is.
You get to impact, like when you think about a training academy and a larger department, just think about like New York City Fire Department, right? You know, you look at how many thousands of firefighters they have, and you know, the impact that those instructors can have. It could be thousands of firefighters, thousands. Yeah. In your case, you have a class of 70-something going through right now. You're impacting 70 different personalities and different people. Your message hits all of them differently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about that. The guys that are there at the training academy, at in the training division, have the ability to create and mold and shape the fire department for the next 25 years.
Yeah, and
it's wild. Yes.
I look at it as, you know, resumes are a lot of things. Some people look at a resume as a piece of paper saying what I've done. My resume is on my wall.
Right.
I got a picture of every class I've taught with them standing on the stage. That's my resume. That is what I have done. And when I'm gone, those guys will still be saying about this little short guy with a jacked up accent was sitting here trying to tell me something, and they teaching it to everybody else. You know, because if I do it right to them, how many people are they going to turn around and do the same thing to? Show them the right way, show them the way to teach, the way to treat people, everything else. You know, if that guy's here 20 years, how many people is he going to impact? And then that little bit of stuff I done with that one person keeps on going. I mean, when I'm in the dirt,
especially when they walk in the door, especially when they get there, they're so impressionable. First impressions matter. You can set them up for success, or you could kill their love for the fire service. And my problem is we have too many people in the fire service today that are responsible for killing people's passion and love for the job. And that to me is criminal. I think that allowing others to influence you, whether you fall in love with the job or not, or you end up going out of the academy, you get assigned to engine 12 instead of engine 24, and engine 12 are a bunch of losers, and engine 24 is a bunch of winners. And because of your draw or the lottery, that could ruin your career if you're not willing to get out of there and do everything you can. It's tough, man. People are responsible for one another in the fire service. We have to be accountable for that.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's trying to teach, that's what I was talking about earlier, teaching them to drive, teaching them to be hungry. I can teach you the basic skills, and I'm going to try to show you my passion, why I have it, and hope you grow from that. You know, throw out a little bit of fertilizer, see how a crop does. I mean, but like you say, if they get an assignment they really don't want to be at, there's two ways you can go with it. You can fall into the cracks like the other guys that are there, or you can go out and do your own thing, get better on your own, and then somebody else is going to kind of get you from the draft off the side and talk you into putting in for a transfer. I mean, but let's be honest. Nobody wants to stay at the academy for 30 weeks. You know, I mean, they want to come in and get their stuff and then go back in the street and start running calls. But, you know, you have to put the work in. You have to put the work in here to get to that point, trust the process. And then a lot of times we have those conversations with them. You know, you might not get the pick you want. Give it time. It will pay for itself in the long run. I mean,
yeah. What was it? I want to ask you, what was it that you know what's funny? I actually saw this morning, just random coincidence, that you had sent me a message on Facebook a while back to my personal Facebook account, and I rarely ever use my personal social media. So I totally missed that whole message until this morning, believe it or not. And then you got Dan Schultz reached out, and then we connected, shared numbers, and so on. But what was it with our content, with my content? What was it that was the hook for you that you were like, man, there's something here? Because I know just this conversation today, it's very like-minded in a lot of ways.
I know exactly when it was. I teach on the weekends for the state fire academy. And it was one of those weekends where I had one of those 200-mile drives to where I was going to go teach at. And I was listening to the podcast. And that's when I just started listening to the National Fire, and I listened to the whole thing of Bridging the Gap on the way there. And I'm like, so when I got in the parking lot, I stopped and said, okay, I backed up, heard your name, and I'm like, I'm going to find this guy on Facebook and say, look, whatever you're preaching about, I'm ready to pass the plate and drop $1 in it. I mean,
jeez.
because you had a sermon going and I was eating it up. And I'm like, I just want to talk and get in this guy's head because he's talking about the same things I'm dealing with on a daily basis a lot of times.
So that is the connection I wanted to make in asking you that question, right? Is because I know you've written some articles. I know that you teach, and you fall very much in line with a lot of the things that I speak about. You've been speaking about as well, just on a local level or a state level. I know one or two of your articles has to talk about mentorship and culture and things like that too. You talked about the what was it before? You mentioned the respect. Giving respect and not making them earn it. Like, it's just things like that. And what excites me is that everything that I put together in that program and things that I talk about on this podcast and show and on the social media content and stuff, it's all formed from my own opinions from over time. And I don't listen to a lot of other influential people in the fire service by any means, because I don't want to cloud my own thoughts and ideas, right?
Sure.
Because my biggest worry, Cap, is like, I come out with something and then somebody's like, yeah, somebody's been talking about that for 6 years already. And I'm like, well, that's cool. I didn't steal it from them, but maybe I did. But if I know I didn't listen to them, I know I didn't hear it, right? Yeah. And so, but my thing is this, is like everything that I talk about are things that I've lived or I've been through, whether it's in the firehouse, in my personal life, in my family. And I think that it's great. And it reinforces my message when guys like you are like doing the same freaking thing, man. I love it because you're all in. You've learned through trial and error. You've taken on an accountable and humble perspective. All that stuff truly, truly matters, man. Truly does.
Yeah, I mean, because like the one article I read, it was talking about the big rolling joke is some of the old guys that taught us. Actually, some of them are still around. One of the old guys, Mr. Calvin, we pick on him, say, he chiseled his lesson plans out. I mean, so when I wrote that article, the stone tablets was picking on him.
That's what it was.
And, but, look at how it used to be versus how it is now. Everything's going digital. I mean, and it was just talking about kind of like, I never even heard you talk about bridging the gap or whatever until after that was already done and sent. I mean, and it's just so close to each other because we're both experiencing so many common things that the fire service is changing and stuff.
We need more people to talk about these topics. As much as I say, like, man, I wish it was 90% strategy and tactics, 10% culture and survivability, if you will. And I'm not talking on the fire ground. I'm talking in firehouses, But unfortunately, the conversation has skewed, and we talk more about people are starving more for information on leadership and culture than they are fire tactics. And we have the proposition is skewed. It's wrong. We flipped the script.
Where you have everybody's one, and that's get on Google. It won't take you just a second to find 4,500 people across the country talking about leadership and strategy.
Yes.
Let's talk about understanding the difference in between the people in the firehouse now versus the people that are starting to come in, and how can we make it where they mesh together and get along and still provide for the people.
Yep.
I mean, that's
and I think a big part of that, Cap, is experience. You have to let the process happen. The only way we get good at this, the only way your culture works, the only way leadership works is if you actually have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about it. We can talk about it all day long. You can study for it. You can take a test on it. You can even practice it on the training ground. But until you implement it, until you actually have to do it, you haven't done it.
Yeah, I mean, and I've only
Trust
done it
the
on
process.
the small part. I got my little process that's inside the fence here. I get them when they get here. I work them and get them the very basics of what it is to go outside and be dangerous when you leave the gate, and trusting the guys in the street to really teach them the rest of the stuff. I mean, and we've got some jam up people that have some really, really good firehouse culture that they're still building. And
love that.
I mean,
Yes.
we got, I'll throw the guy a bone all day long. Michael Dozier that works with us, he goes out on the national circuit talking about winning firehouse culture and stuff. He does a phenomenal job with it. And he's got a training background too. He started off as a training instructor, went back out in the street to go ride the rig, wanted to do something different. And he's taking that and adding the firehouse culture to it. And he's building he's got a winning program over there. Those guys love it.
So we were talking about culture. We were talking about the importance of building culture within our firehouses and so on. I have to say this, culture, some places, culture is in the process of being found or created. Not every fire company or fire department has culture built in on a positive side. I think you can always influence and build on the existing culture. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, like, look at the age difference in your department versus mine. How much time has your department had to build that culture versus we're
right
at a quarter of a century? I mean, so it takes time, and I think what we were talking about earlier, it takes a lot of work. What do you want your department to be? We got to meet at the crossroads. What do you want your department to be? How do you want your people to be? It's not going to make itself. People have to make it for it.
Yeah, we have to be protective of it, right? And I think what we need, and this goes down another road, and kind of where I want to take this is, we need stewards of the culture. We need people that are dialed in, that are willing to fight for what's right for the company or for the department. And when you do that, it requires loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty is important, and we need to make sure that we maintain and have a sense of loyalty within our fire companies, within our department. Loyalty means people are buying in, and they're invested, and they're protective.
Yep.
Important.
Very important. Very important. And I'm very loyal to my department. It was a place that gave me refuge when I was a young child. It helped me build structure into myself. Place was good enough to give me a job, to be able to take care of my family. And that's my patch. And that's the way I look at it. I mean, and it's our job to teach the younger people in the department to have that same thought process. You're not just a part of the department, that is your department. Chief Lasky says it the best. I mean, you can't have pride without ownership. You got to have ownership first. You're never going to be proud of a car that you never worked for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but nobody wants a piece of the ownership if the ship is sinking. Nobody wants ownership of the beater down the road. You know what I mean? Like, we want, I want to be a part owner of a sports car. I want something that's got value. And I think that's part of the conversation here is that, you can have ownership and it could be something that is not firing on all cylinders, but we still need people to, I get it. Trust me, I get it. Because that's the thing. And it takes work. You said it takes work, and I would agree with you wholeheartedly.
Well,
but
I mean,
you have to, you got to put some trust in the process too. You have to take ownership. Sometimes the ownership that we need you to take is a clunker.
Hey, I think that's something I can relate to. Most of the guys that know me, I drove a Geo Tracker with no heat, no cover on it, nothing else for like 3 years back and forth to work. Biggest POS you've ever seen in your life. But it got me back and forth to work. It made it where I could provide for my family, and I don't have to drive it anymore. Because I mean, at that point in time, what was better? To have something to get to work that I didn't have payments with, versus making myself, neck deep in debt over something to drive. It's no different than starting out. Things might not always be what you want them right then. But, my house wasn't what I wanted at the very beginning. We built it slowly to how we want it to be. No different than anything else. Your education is not what you want it to start off with. You take and give and learn and everything else. It's the same process all the way around.
Requires patience, though. We all lack patience today more than ever. And I guess this is where I was headed with this, is we're asking for loyalty from our people.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't always get that. And in fact, I think we're finding, a lack of loyalty. A lot of people are jumping ships and going elsewhere, bouncing between companies, or not giving, not putting in enough time to even give it a chance, or being the change. Maybe you're the guy that can turn the ship, but you're not willing to spend the time or the longevity that it will take to do so. How do we get people to understand what that all looks like? I mean, this is a hell of a conversation.
One we could probably spend a week on.
I agree.
Leading by example, Jeremy. I mean, lead by example. A lot of the guys that are in my department that have been here for, we'll go on, let's say 15 plus years, because we're a really young department. The guys that have been here for that amount of time have the perfect opportunity to show them, be patient, the process works. It takes time to build. I show them the paychecks we first got back in 2001 versus right now if they're worried about the difference in a dollar. I mean,
right.
It pays substantially a lot better. I think if we show them the calling, show them the purpose, and get some fulfillment other than a monetary value, would be a lot of help. Because there's departments all across the country that the guys never get any compensation for. They're still at the firehouse. They're still running the calls. It's not always about a dollar.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you. I think that, and when you get to understand these younger generations, right? The newer generations that are coming into our firehouse, a lot of them are focused on experience and not always the cash. And so you then have to look at that and say, okay, if that's the case, then we need to provide the best experience for them to want to fall in love with this, right? We have to give them the tools. I look at recruitment posters for departments, and they're not even putting pay on the poster because they're probably not the highest paid department. But what they do offer is, we're going to tell you that we run fires, we have tillers, we're an aggressive interior fire department.
Mm-hmm.
We don't run this, we do this. They're promoting their culture.
Mm-hmm.
And that is attractive to people today. We were talking about culture. We were talking about the importance of people buying into our fire companies and our fire departments, if you will, having a foundation from which can support what they're looking for. I think something too, and before we wrap, I just want to hit you with this. Everybody's in it for their own reasons. So we can't just broad stroke the fire service. We have to be particular in our delivery to the individuals that are coming up through the ranks and know what makes them tick, and then provide them the opportunities they are looking for to succeed. Would you agree?
I would. It's hard to really figure out what we're going to have to do. You talk about that broad stroke, but
yeah.
is we got to find a way. It's still going to have to get done. The calls are still going to have to get run, but we got to find a way to, like we were talking about earlier, bridge that gap, make some harmony, and make it where everybody does the job and takes care of Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, the one thing that I get concerned about is when I do my program and when I do episodes like this and we go deep on a couple issues, sometimes I'm worried that it comes off too dark. It's too gloomy. It's too, always pointing at the doom and gloom of what's happening. And if we don't fix it, that type of thing. But I always like to end anything I'm doing on a high. And I think it's very much this. The fire services is still the greatest institution in the world. I think that we have incredible people still in the pipeline. I think that some of the younger kids, these younger generations that are coming in, I think there's some spectacular firefighters that are in these classes. We're still seeing 25-year-old kids knock it out of the park that are going to be amazing company officers. So I don't want this message to come off like doom and gloom. And I worry too often we focus on the negative and not the positive. And I'm not a sunshine and rainbows type of guy. I don't need to feel good. I don't need to be stroked. But I think it's important for somebody like myself that talks a lot about these type of issues is we also have to say how good the fire service still is.
Fire service is still phenomenal. I can't think of anything else in the world I could want to do. And a lot of what we're talking about is not gloom. It's just turn the flashlight on to try to shed some light on some stuff we picked up on for everybody to do their part to make it better.
Yeah. I like that. I think it's important to talk about the issues. I said to you earlier, we're focusing more on culture and leadership and things like that than strategy and tactics. And it's because people are willing to really start talking about it. People are seeking more. They're looking for something more. We can go learn the fire ground, and we're going to do that every single day as we're turning a wheel and going out the door. As we're going to fires, as we're going to BS runs, we're still learning the trade, if you will. It's the other stuff that everybody's starving for. So I'm glad that we are talking about it. And you're right, it's not gloom. We're just shining the light on things that are happening, firehouses across the country.
And trying to make it to where people see we need to do some changes. Nothing says there's anything got to be radical. Just the biggest thing is I can say it as somebody that's got some time in. We do a really good job of getting information across and teaching skills and everything else. We just need to learn how to change our delivery a little bit. It's the same message, the same job. We just might need to change delivery a little bit, and then take a second to validate the people we're talking to and what they're trying to add to it first.
I like that. I think I like that a lot, in fact, and I'm just sitting here kind of putting it all together and trying to figure out the wrap and how to end this. But I think you just did. I think we are in a phenomenal place, as you said. I think we have, like any industry or profession, if you will, there's always going to be the ups and downs. It's what we do with the downs that get us back up high again. And it's called accountability. And I think that's a really good way to end. And Cap, thank you. Thanks for joining me today, man. It's been a lot of fun weaving through the technical issues and the weather and everything else that we've been dealing with today. Thank you, man. I enjoyed this very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, you're always welcome. Once you're on the show, you're always welcome back. So when you get something hot and heavy you want to go and you want to rant about, let me know, man. I'll jump on and rant with you all day long. But I just want to make sure, though, as we talk about all these things, that we're not just talking about it and making it white noise. I want to make sure that we're offering some type of solution or at least awareness and how to maybe try to correct some of it. And I think that that's really important. It's very easy to go out and to bluster about it, to talk all about issues. But if you're not offering any type of, solution or practical experience that you've gained, then all you are is white noise. We need practitioners. I think that's what I'm getting at. We need practitioners.
I mean, if you want to hear somebody gripe about everything that's wrong, go to the firehouse. But you're exactly right. We need people that are willing to do the work, find the means to make things better, and then put that work in and make a difference. Griping about it's not going to fix anything. I mean,
yeah. I think there's a lot to that. So thank you. Well, I do say this. On that note, you are a practitioner, and that's what you're doing in Horry County. And yes, I said it correctly all episode long. It's not Horry, it's Horry County. The H is silent. I get it. It's a Southern thing.
We'll get a picture of you by the sign next time you come down.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. We'll absolutely do that. Wayne Jones, thank you, brother. Thank you very much for joining me on the show today. I apologize for the issues that we had today, but let's iron those out. But I think the message was strong, and I appreciate you reaching out, and I appreciate this friendship and the back and forth we had today. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Good luck with the candidates, the Proby class that you're running right now with your cadre there. Go get it, man. You're making tomorrow's firefighter. I love it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Wayne Jones, where can people reach out if they're interested? They want to get a hold of you. Can they find you anywhere?
Sure. I'm on I'm Facebook. Just Wayne Jones. Just pretty face. Real beautiful woman beside him.
There you go. Love that. We all do, for sure. I can tell you that. Our other halves are always better looking than we are.
If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. I can promise you that. She's very supportive.
That's awesome. Well, you need that.
Yeah,
you need that for sure.
Facebook, I've got a LinkedIn page, and if anybody wants to shoot me an email, is hcwildfire5@yahoo.
Awesome. I love it. Cap, thanks for joining me, man. Stay right here. I'm going to sign off the podcast. I'm going to come right back to you, okay? Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Guys, do me a favor. Like I say at the end of every single episode, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it, because when we're talking about the job, we're making the job better. Wayne Jones, captain out of Horry County, South Carolina. Great topics today. We hit some really, really solid shots here. It was good conversation. So thanks for tuning in. For myself and Wayne Jones, we'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.